want answers.
I want the truth.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Realize Real Lies podcast. I am your host, Georgina Grace, and today I have Mr. Michael Dowling-Fleet on the podcast. Michael is a ruling 39-3 energy and very exciting because we haven't had a 39-3 yet on the podcast. This means that this man is highly intuitive. He's actually a very clear channel from source energy straight through to him, and which means that he has a truth that is flowing through him that he needs to get out of his system. And whatever that truth is, because it's coming from source, it's profound and it needs to be heard. Michael is also a healer, a very profound healer. And as you will learn throughout this episode, this man is actually very quite in alignment with this ruling number energy, which I feel has been a journey to get to. So,
Still going.
yes, it's a constant journey. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me on the show. Gosh, what is that on my wrist?
Thank you, Georgina. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
So great. So I would really love to just start this conversation by asking you who you are and where you came from and why you're doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is actually so very profound and very timely with the current affairs in the world at the moment. And it's definitely answering a very big need. But I wanted to give myself and also people who listen to this just like an opportunity to be, the Michael world. Who is Michael? Who is this person?
Wow. Straight out the gate with the $6 million question. Who am I?
Yeah.
I can give you my labels and my happenings, but who I actually am, if I separate myself from my thoughts, is I'm still trying to find out. So I'll tell you what's happened to me, and I'll give you what sort of my identification in the 3D, if you will. So I lived in Australia for 8 years, and I'll come to that in a second. So I'm 46 years old, be 47 in about 8 days, and I have a Japanese father, an Irish mother, and I grew up in the southeast of England. I started an early career in the City of London in high finance, and just felt massively out of alignment with that. So like a little hobo, went on many trails, on many adventures. And when you're out of alignment, it does make you ill. So, I was suffering with depression and anxiety, as a lot of people do at the early stage of their life, because they've been drummed by society to go one way, and their inner calling is telling them, no, something's not right. Stop the ride. I want to get off. I want to go somewhere else. So in my quest to find myself, I was introduced to martial arts, and I had a real aptitude for it, for Wing Chun Kung Fu. And I went on that path. And what it was, there was something about that where there was a nurturing aspect for my instructor that was all inclusive and very educating in a sense that it was very holistic. Because what I found is that there were a lot of other aspects of human behavior that were addressed when we were inside. It wasn't just about kicking crap out of each other. So I started to go, so this is why this Bruce Lee chap was always, speaking in riddles and this kind of thing. So I started looking at the link between martial arts and the origins of martial arts coming from Buddhism. And I went to Australia because Australia has a very sporting culture, very can-do attitude. The class system isn't the same as it is in the UK. And it was just more befitting for someone like me. It's like a new country, you know. To me, anyway, look, I was very naive. I thought everyone was going to wear hats with corks and that there'd be kangaroos bouncing up and down the Sydney Harbour steps. And when I arrived in Chinatown, Sydney, now completely different. So I then broadened what I was doing with Wing Chun and went into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and became, well, I trained to be a consummate mixed martial artist. Now, in that time, I worked for a finance company part-time. So I worked for Citigroup. So I was still in the sort of stockbroker world. And in the evenings, I moonlit as a nightclub door supervisor. I joined a team of a very elite team. They were all Sydney Uni graduates, and they had a security team. And we were getting chased up and called up to host venues where, you know, they didn't want meatheads. They wanted people that could wear a suit and you know, speak to a high net worth and say, "Excuse me, sir, I think you've forgotten where you are. I think you've had too much to drink." Perhaps it's, you know, that kind of thing. And I thought, I want to stay in Australia, but wearing angry white pajamas and shouting in a mirror is not going to get me a visa. So what's on the skilled occupation list? So I've got to put my hands up to it. I played the system and I just went, right, what's the quickest and easiest thing I think I can do for the least amount of money exchanged? Right, I can go to Macquarie University and do a postgraduate diploma in education to teach. No intention of teaching at all. So I went in there and there were other students that were there playing the same game, did that, got 60 points on the skilled occupation list, satisfied immigration, got my visa, happy days. Was in a relationship. I say the relationship was the first marriage, which was an absolute car crash, to an accountant stroke solicitor. And we'd moved out to the Blue Mountains. And the reason we did that is because we saw this house on the hill and we just fell in love with it. So it was like we both wanted the same thing from within, but we were perhaps coming at it with different angles, different motives. Ultimately, that didn't work out. But while I was there, the only employment opportunities that there were for me, as I didn't have a law degree and I wasn't a policeman or a fireman, was to be a teacher. So we're going back some time now because I remember using a fax machine and sending out 14 faxes to schools from the foothills of the Blue Mountains out to Lithgow or Lithgow. You know, my Aussie twang's gone now, you know. And I got a school ring me up and they said, "Yeah, look, can you start 8:30 tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." Completely shitting myself because I just thought, well, I can't actually teach. I've got the certificate, but that's just the theory. It's kind of like if you've got a truck driver's license and someone says, "Right, okay, mate, get that and move it over here and I want you to drive it up so-and-so." And you're like, well, there's a lot more to it than just having a license. Anyway, I went in there, blagged it, winged it, went with the flow. And after about 3 months, I thought to myself, yeah, there's something in this. I think this was the thing that I was calling me all the time because what there was in that, I know education could be very instrumental. In other words, they just teach you what you need so you can go to the factory floor, right? So you're a good employee.
Yeah.
But I always have used it as a conduit to channel in so much more. So there's a nurturing aspect. There's more of a holistic approach. And that's been a great forum for me to do that. Now, when I left my wife, I moved back to the UK and I worked in a school here. It was vastly different culture to the schools in Australia. And I mentioned this to other people before, but let's just say if you've got a half term and you're moving your house or you're doing something in a garden, a lot of people would muck in and come round. You know, they'd bring a 6-pack in a ute and we'd get it done. And then we could sit down and have a beer afterwards and a barbecue. Not in the UK. It wouldn't even hold the door open for you. Very, very sort of like, yeah, shut off. And also not unionized. Like there's unions here, but there wasn't that militancy, that cohesion that I experienced when I was in Australia. Now, that was a long time ago, you know, so I don't know what it's like down there now. So for anyone listening to this, you know, forgive any generalizations. This is just purely my own experience. Anyway, I'm working my socks off here and getting scrutinized by government inspectors.
Mhm.
And I just thought that if you look at the Pareto efficiency, it's only 20% of what I do has 80% impact on my students. And a lot of that actually doesn't have anything to do with the curriculum.
Hmm.
It's coming from me and the nurturing that I'm giving them.
Totally.
So I didn't like and appreciate that governments in Australia and the UK, they wanted us not to be the sage on the stage, but the guide on the side. That's the official line. And that they want us to be facilitators of learning rather than teachers. And I just think that's bollocks. You need a teacher, you need a mentor, you need all of these things.
Hmm.
You need that human connection. So I'm very dissatisfied with it. And I just thought we need to do something to bring down the workflow for teachers. So I came up with the idea. I had an epiphany for an app which I developed, and we ended up having 75,000 users, which sounds a lot, but in the scheme of things wasn't a lot. We wanted a lot more because we were really helping parents, teachers, and students. But I'll just tell you how that came about. So I was very dissatisfied, and this was about 11 years ago. And we had a staycation holiday, and we went down to Glastonbury, of all places,
Hmm.
which of course is like, the spiritual mecca of the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And when I was down there, I was walking down an alleyway and there was a £10 and a £5 note on the alleyway floor. And my wife said, pick it up. And I picked it up. I usually am the guy that loses the money, not finds the money. So I was like, right, okay, what's this about? And as we walked down, there was, one of these chalkboards out and it said tarot readings, £30. And my wife said, go on, get a tarot reading. And I said, oh, I haven't done this since I was in the rocks in Sydney and it never panned out. They told me I'll be retired by now on a super yacht. It's all a load of nonsense. Anyway, I walked in there and the guy was there and he had his guy liner on and he looked like he was in the band The Cure. And he said, look, I can't slot you in for another half an hour. Do you want to take a walk out the Abbey and then come back? And I said, yeah, sure. So I did that. And we had our little Rottweiler puppy with us at the time. So we took him to stretch his legs. And came back, went into this place, shut the curtain and got the cards out and all the other stuff. And he just said, your job sucks. It's not what you signed for. He said, you didn't sign up for the admin. He
Yeah.
said, the house that you've just bought, he said, is like, we had this Georgian Victorian house that was dilapidated. He said, don't worry, you're going to get that renovated. And then about that time, you'll have your first child. And then shortly thereafter, you move, you'll have your second child. That all went to plan.
Wow.
And he said to me, he said, you won't be in the classroom beyond Halloween. So when it comes 31st of October, and the reading was in August. So he said, in August 2013, he said to me, basically, certainly by Christmas of 2013, you won't be in the classroom. And you're going to do a business which is related to what you're doing. Now, at the time, I was supplementing my income by tutoring. So I was thinking, oh, am I going to tutor or something? And
Mm.
I thought, I haven't got a clue what he's on about. But this is about awareness because it's kind of like you might have heard of this story where the husband says to the wife, I've got you a surprise present, but you've got to search a house for it. She searches the house and she finds one present underneath the sofa. And he said, there's another one. So she searches everywhere and then she finds one in the cupboard. And he says, no, keep going. I've got more. And she searches and searches. So I was forced, I was induced to search where I hadn't searched before.
Mm.
And then one day I was in the classroom. It was the second week back of the school term in September. And we have these homework diaries where kids write all their notes in for their homework and parents talk. And this student who wasn't there on the first day to get her diary, I gave it to her and had to explain to her all the new bits and pieces that were in it. And as I walked off under her breath, she said, oh, for fuck's sake, why can't they put it in an app? And I went, that's the idea. And so, yeah, I rang up a really good friend of mine and I just said, listen, you're in a tech business. You had a digital marketing agency and you did very well and you exited. Uh, do you know anyone that can develop apps or anything? He said, yeah, I might know a few people. Come on down and meet me at the club and we'll ask around. And then it just went from there. And then,
Mm.
I didn't know how I was going to pay the mortgage or do anything, but I did indeed leave the classroom and I got investment and off we went. Now, sadly, we didn't make it through COVID. Um, And there are a lot of reasons for that, but I'm not here to discuss that. But that was another journey in itself, because in that time, I was overwhelmed with feelings of imposter syndrome.
Mm.
There was a lot of self-sabotaging behaviours that creeped in. There's a lot of alcohol around business. For anybody listening, I don't regard myself as an alcoholic. I love a good bottle of wine, and I do appreciate a good scotch.
Mm.
But before you know it, it's all black coffee and drink and cigarettes and high stress and irregular sleeping patterns. And it's very lonely as well when you're an entrepreneur, because you're saddling a lot of responsibility and the buck stops with you, especially when it's a startup and you can't delegate. Although in retrospect, I should have delegated more. And that was something else that it taught me. So along that forced me to recognize that I don't have all the answers. I'm not in control of jack shit. That I do need help. I should ask for help. And if I ask for help, more often than not, it will be provided, but perhaps not in the guise that I've prescribed.
Mm.
It comes in various different ways. And without sounding corny, you end up on the hero's journey and you meet all of those archetypes.
Mhm.
And I got into a very sticky, horrible, messy joint venture. And I'm not going to bore listeners with the ins and outs of that, but I was in a lot of turmoil with that because my dream was dying. It was being torn apart in front of me.
Mm.
What I thought was my dream at the time. And I again, I had to start questioning what's going on. What is it really about? Why is it always happening to me? What's going on? And I was ever aware of a nefarious elite agenda that was going on in the world in the background.
Mm.
Um, and there was only a very small clique of us that could actually talk openly and comfortably about this, especially my business circle. So I thought, well, okay, what are these guys tapped into? They're tapped into some other source. So I wanted to go and explore what that channel was. And that led me down a realm of Golden Dawn, Hermetic laws, magic with a K. So I started looking at that. And then ultimately, I realized that what magic is about is self-transformation and programming the subconscious and getting the two hemispheres of the brain, the masculine and the feminine, to work in unison. And then download from the Akashic records or whatever it is, steer what we're going to do. And at the same time we're doing that, we're also doing a dance with fate, because I believe everything is planned at the same time. It's a bit of both. But once you develop a quantum mindset, you can reconcile that. It's not a problem. So I had to get off away from the binary. It's still there because you're programmed to be very binary and 3D.
Mm.
But that was the start of it in 2018.
Mm.
And then when 2020 came, I just saw it coming. I
Mm.
mean, I saw it, as soon as the lockdowns happened, and I just thought, here we go. Here we go. This is it. This is why I was here. This is why certain people have been here all along. Bring it on.
Mm.
Let's have it out. Let's bring it into the light. And then when the mRNA gene editing solution miraculously appeared right
Mm.
on cue, again, I was like, right, okay, here we go. And I'm very fortunate because my wife was on the same page as me, and that
Mm.
makes it a lot easier, because I know a lot of people whose spouse are just, they think they're nuts, they're crazy, and oh, for goodness sake, why can't you be normal? Why can't
Mhm.
you just watch your TV with your tongue hanging out like I do? And yeah, so we came through all of that. Business folded up. Um, I'm quite happy with that now. And I struggled and limped on. I went back to the classroom, got to pay the bills.
Mm.
And when I went back to the classroom, it got me back. It got me retethered with my soul, I think is probably the best way of describing it. It's not that I don't believe that teaching the classroom is my calling at all, but it was telling me you're warmer, you're getting warmer.
Mm.
And I met Ben Hawkes, who you've had on your podcast,
Mm.
and I met him at an investors soiree in London, and we met drinking champagne out of plastic flutes, eating partially frozen vol au vents. Now, she just texted me about this actually before I got on the show this morning. And I never stopped thinking about you, Ben. We really hit it off. And there was a real resonance. We were on the same frequency, right? And same age, both big guys, just hit it off.
Yeah.
And then I saw him on LinkedIn. And I thought, I wonder what he's doing because I know that he does a lot of stuff with wealth creation and property tax, etc. And then I found the wake up and I was like, oh my God, this guy's, I knew he was on my level because he's talking about everything I've been on about for years. I could have had this conversation with him back in 2014. So I reached out to him like, hey, do you remember me? And he said, yeah, I remember you. And I was kind of like, I'm on your level, you know, come talk to me. So we had a chat. It's like universe intervened because every time we had a chat, something came up and we had to move the call. And I thought, I'm not giving up. I've got to talk to Ben. And then we had a chat. And about that time, I really, I was imploding. There were a lot of pressures on the 3D that were pulling me in different directions. And just for people that are listening, just to give you some context, this was this time last year.
Mm.
And I'd read a lot of books on personal development. And I was interested and knew about, mind hacking. I was a big follower of Bob Proctor's work and Eckhart Tolle. And Ben said, look, I've been working with a chap called Jason Christoff,
Mm.
who's world-renowned leader in self-sabotage, mind control, and how to overcome it and reprogram yourself. Would you like to train with him? And I said, absolutely. It couldn't have come at the moment where I was absolutely, had enough.
Mm.
And I just leapt at it. And everything just changed from that moment. I remember the conversation. I almost remember light coming in the room at the time.
Mm.
And so I avidly trained at this and brought all of my other experiences, all of my nurturing, all of my coaching, all of that general stuff that makes you a consummate healer into it. And Jason saw that and he appreciated it. And a very good endorsement from him. And so the idea is that there are more people like me out there. There are a lot more people out there like me. And I'm not a paragon of virtue. I'm by no means the finished article. And you asked me at the beginning, who are you? And you said, it's been quite a journey for you to get here. And I'm like, yeah. And I don't, we've got still quite a long way to go and we're going to keep going. But somebody did say to me once, I met this business advisor once, and she just looked at me and she just said, this was another thing. And this was in 2015. I tweeted something trying to promote my business, and some teacher shot down my tweet. And I was gutted because I was like, I'm trying to help you. And the people I'm trying to help, you've slapped my hand away. And then I had all this imposter syndrome and everything crashed in. And this lady said to me, she just looked at me and she said, you're on a low vibration and you're just going to attract more and more bad stuff. And I hadn't even said anything. I don't know if it was my posture, my aura. And she said, you've got to realize that the fun's in the journey.
Mm.
And at the time I went, yeah, the fun's in the journey. Yeah. And I went along with it. Now I realize exactly what she meant.
Mm.
That, if you're on that vibration, that frequency, then you're only going to attract other things that are in sync with it. Now, for anybody listening here, I'm not going to say, okay, so, your dog's just died and the house has just been repossessed. You need to raise your vibration.
Yeah.
It's not quite as straightforward as that, but you just have to be mindful of, okay, the voice in your head and what it's saying and what energy you're putting out, because some people do pick up on it.
Mm.
So that's where I'm at now.
Mm.
And I feel in terms of alignment, I am here to help other people. I'm here. That's what I've been done to serve. And by doing that, and the more I do that, then the more resources will be given to me to do it. It's kind of like, James Bond is given a mission, and then all of a sudden he gets a gadget he watches, it shoots lasers, and he gets a car with an ejector seat. The universe will give you these tools, these gadgets, these gizmos, these synchronicities that you need to fulfill your mission
Mm-hmm.
once you run it. If
Mm.
I haven't got any gadgets or gizmos for a while, I get concerned because I think, have I made a wrong turn? So there's an element of faith there, because with my own self-transformation and with that of my clients, you can't imagine it because you haven't been there. So to leave your old self and to change, I'm asking you to leave the prison cell. And a lot of people are fine with breaking out the cell, but they never actually leave the prison grounds. They're
Mm.
stuck in a no man's land between actually fully escaping their old self, their old paradigm, their old habits, their own behavior. They've left the cell, but they're kind of stuck against the wall, and they hear the siren going, woo! They can hear the dog, wah, 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 wah. The guard dogs are barking. Where is he? Halt. They can see the searchlight on the wall. And they're breathing and they're panting and they're looking at the barbed wire fence, and they're like, I haven't got any wire cutters. I'm going back to the cell. Often they will go back to the cell, and I go back to the cell too. And
Mm.
then you gear and you think, okay, we're going to do another break tomorrow morning, tomorrow night, whatever it might be. But you can't imagine what it's going to be like beyond the prison wall.
Mm.
But if you do make it through the prison wall, you think, well, I'm wearing striped pajamas and I have no money and I'm a fugitive. But if you make it outside the wall, your higher self will be there with a getaway car and a passport to a higher plane and the resources, the suitcase of cash and silk shirt and sunglasses,
Yeah.
and you'll be whisked off. But you can't see that because that prison wall represents what Bob Proctor calls the terror barrier. So
Mm.
just as you're changing and you might have 90 days, all of a sudden, subconscious is overwhelmed with this fearful sensation of saying, look, we don't know this. We've never drank at this watering hole. Let's say you're a gazelle. You drink at this watering hole. You don't know. There could be a crocodile in that. We don't drink here. And you're like, but this is an oasis. So you can either see the oasis and it scares you because you're scared of your own happiness and success because you don't know anything different than where you've been, or you just can't conceptualize it. It's something completely alien. And that, I think, is where you've got lack of evidence, and people believe that's evidence of lack. That's where the F word comes in, faith.
Mm.
If you have the faith, then you can keep moving forward.
Michael, what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and what you have put yourself through to get to this point of um, now you're here and now you're hungry to give what you have discovered from your own personal journey to the world, to everybody. And it's my favorite part is how in alignment you have been throughout the entire journey. And a lot of the times people think that operating in alignment means it's sunshine and rainbows all the time, but it's not. A lot of the times when you're operating in alignment, your reality looks like shit.
Isn't it just?
Yeah, but you need to go through the shit because it's in the shit that is actually where the gold is for what's to come next. And
Yeah.
you have been the best thing about your journey, in my opinion, is that you are just open and listening, like, all right, there's 15, I don't know what you call it, 15 pounds, 15 bucks, wherever you were in the world, in front of me here. There's a tarot reading. Oh, like, okay, I'll go.
I hadn't, I'd missed that part out. So he basically, sorry, just to say, Georgina, I was booked for an hour, and he said he spent just 25 minutes, and he said, you'll be out and everything will be good and you'll find your path and off you go. And he crossed his arms. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said, just call it £15.
Oh, wow. Was your brain like, was this a weird marketing trick that he did? Did he deliberately put that out there for me to find? And then my
We
brain
got one.
that's
Well, I'll tell you, they're bloody brilliant. But that was, sorry, so anybody listening, the whole point of me saying about the £15 that was on the floor was
Yeah.
because he only charged me £15 and not £30.
Yeah.
And why I found it so powerful is there wasn't the sort of the puffery and there wasn't the pad and feel these readings. Oh, what else can I tell them? Tell them that they're going to meet someone beautiful and they're going to win the lottery and whatever else, you know. He just went, look, boom, 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 get out there and go to work.
Yeah.
Sat back, crossed his arms. Let's just call it 15 quid. So I couldn't get a stronger sign than that. And it's really great to talk about it because actually you're probably only the fourth person I've told this story to.
Wow.
And, you know, ever. And, you know, my wife was there to experience it. But when you do, and you are in a shit and you are in the grind of it, you have to remind yourself of, well, where did it all begin? Where did it start? What was the pivotal moment? And was that not a sign?
Mm.
So re-engage your faith. And I read a book called The Divine CEO by a chap called Jeff Thompson.
Mm.
And he said, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, Jeff, sorry, but it basically he said, you know, the hardships that you have on this journey, these are the whetstone which you sharpen the divine sword.
Yeah.
It's all part of the process. And there was an influencer on Instagram who said, I'll say an influencer, I don't know, somebody that knows their stuff that it resonated, and they said that, you know, what people don't realize is when you do the change, they seem to think you punch your hand in the air and you go, okay, all right, you know, like you see on some Tony Robbins show, and I'm changed. And yes, the change does happen instantly once you decide, because, you know, there is a chain sequence of decisions in life,
Mm.
you know, and I wouldn't say if they're good or bad. There's just decisions. Do I go A or B, A or B, A or B? But he said, what it is, he said, what people have got to realize is it's not like a Hollywood movie where you got, you know, flames behind you and you're walking out in slow motion and all the debris blowing past you and your winds in your hair. It's fucking, it's the drudgery. You just got to go through the drudgery, if for want of a better word, every day. But if you appreciate that the drudgery and is part of that, then you'll look at it differently and you'll be consciously present in the moment and you'll quite enjoy the drudgery because you'll know this is it. This is it, right here and now. But you're absolutely right. It just goes, you know, so, fucking hell. When is this thing going to pay off? But yeah,
Yeah, so good. And you know, I love as well that you said about the universe, you know, they come with the gadgets. And for you, the gadgets at that time was the 15 pound on the floor. Like, here you go. This is what you need. That, you know, that was literally delivered to you on a silver platter
yeah,
by
yeah.
the universe. And boom, there was but so good what you're saying about, yeah, you're in the drudgery and you're not the flames and the debris and everything are not behind you. When you make a decision to change and make a change, you then become engulfed by the flames and the debris, and you are walking like you need to become one with the flames and the debris for a while before you can see the way out or get to the way out. And because, you know, the reality is that we are programmed from birth essentially to be and operate in a certain particular way that is beneficial, not to ourselves, but beneficial to, you know, the power structures of the world, right? This is how everything is designed and set up. And
We're
so
an energy crash crop. Sorry, we're an energy cash crop. Yeah, and we're designed and engineered to be harvested efficiently. Sorry, continue.
no, please don't apologize. But yes, exactly. We are exactly that. And when you start to kind of wake up and realize that this is the reality and you make a change, it usually starts, in my experience, when you make a decision to change yourself within yourself and start healing, start working on yourself. But by the time you get to that point in your life, you have built up an entire lifetime around you that is from a programmed version of you, the past version of you. So when you decide to make a change, the fire and the debris that we're talking about is realizing that 90% of the life you've created is a completely false version, related to a completely false version of you that isn't actually who you are at your truth. So now you've got to go about unwinding every aspect of your life logistically, but then also internally. And this is now where you're at, right, Michael, where you work with people with that programming and that the programming of programming in general, but also the self-sabotaging program. Can you please talk about this? Because this is fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before I do, just to
Yes.
finish off, so the last of the Hollywood analogies, and people who know me, I'm always terrible for analogies. But if you think you're going to get through life and at the end of it be wearing a white tuxedo, drinking a vodka martini, and they're going to say, your usual sweet Mr. Bond, you're wrong. You're going to look more like John McClane out of Die Hard, you know? Right.
Which is way
Let's
more
talk
attractive.
self-sabotage. So, um, I'm going to introduce, and this is a very simplistic thing, all right? So I'm going to ignore any other modalities, whether it's, Freud or Jung or any of those guys. This is just really just grassroots stuff here. Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to two guys. There's Rex and there's Joe. Rex represents the prefrontal cortex of your brain, which you need because that's where your strategy, your analytical, your business mind, your adult mind resides. That's the place where you are making conscious decisions as a dependable, responsible adult.
Mm,
And it can regulate and override any knee-jerk reactions. Okay, this is the place where you respond rather than react.
mm,
Now I'll introduce you to Joe, who represents your subconscious. And there's a reason why I'm giving them names, and I'll explain that in a minute. And your subconscious is where your primal energies are. So it's your aggression, your thirst, your hunger, your sex drive. It's also all your survival instincts are there, your fight or flight mechanism. It's known as the limbic system, or the R complex, the reptilian brain. It does things it does things autonomously, and it manages all of the operations, if you will, the back office stuff that goes on in your body. So you don't have to think about digesting your food. You don't have to think about peristalsis. You don't have to think about your heartbeat or any of that stuff. Okay.
mhm,
It's kind of like the House of Commons and the House of Lords. There's two systems of government. Government meaning you're governing the mental. Um, Now, I say that if you imagine that you are a really prestigious nightclub, you're a great nightclub. Okay, this is the place where everyone wants to hang out,
mm,
and there is a queue of punters that want to get into your nightclub, and the doors to your nightclub are the five senses. So what you can touch, what you can see, what you can smell, what you can hear, what you can taste, all of that. And Rex, who is your prefrontal cortex, the conscious part of your brain, he is an incredible bouncer,
mm,
and he guards and manages the security and the in and out. And he decides who comes in and who comes out of the nightclub of your mind. Everyone wants to come in because they want to dance to records that Joe, your subconscious, plays. Okay. Because Joe can create a great party. If you come in and you tell Joe, put this track on and remix it with this, he'll do it. He's an incredible DJ and everyone wants to come in and party. Okay. So you could have somebody come in who's really good with music and they'll tell Joe what to do with the tracks and he'll synthesize something amazing. So in other words, things can enter your subconscious and the subconscious will synthesize an outcome from them, which will be incredible. But if bad stuff goes in your subconscious, it too will synthesize that and bad stuff will come out big time. Now,
mm.
your first line of defense is going to be Rex on the door, who's going to say, nah, mate, not tonight. Jog on. And Rex, he protects you. If you're a nightclub, he protects you as the licensee. He protects the reputation of your nightclub. He
Mm.
protects you. He doesn't want you to be known as the dopey one, the unreliable one, the one that can't get the shit together. He doesn't want you to be unhappy, unhealthy, overweight, depressed, lonely, any of those things. He doesn't want that for you. He wants you to do to be here he wants you to enjoy life and to fulfill your potential. He wants the best for you. That's all he wants. Joe, on the other hand, just wants to feel safe and have the pain to go away. That's all he's concerned about. Shit, that's hot. Drop it. And Joe will automatically tell your nervous system to drop that hot plate, even if it means the Sunday dinner gets smashed on the floor.
Mm.
So these two are constantly believe that they're looking out for you. And one really is, and it's Rex. And Joe is too. So we can't get rid of Joe because Joe goes back. He's a necessary mechanism. Joe is the guy that, if the caravan falls on a child, he'll give you superhuman strength. He'll give you the reactions to swerve out the way of an oncoming vehicle. So we can't get rid of Joe. So if anyone's listening, go, oh, well, we just blot out Joe. No, we need Joe. But we just got to appreciate how Joe works. Joe, the subconscious, is highly impressionable. Anything that pushes up against that subconscious will be imprinted on it, good or bad. He just follows the order. Okay. So it's up to Rex to filter and decide who gets through to talk to Joe, who enters the club and who doesn't. Now, why this is important is because if you want to control a population and put them under mass delusional psychosis, you want to program people, you got to find ways to make Rex piss off. You need him to leave that door. You need to distract him. So there are a number of ways you can do that. Rex is very susceptible to being poisoned. So if you give Rex caffeine, alcohol, cannabis, cocaine, any drugs, okay, even pharmaceuticals, absolutely, mainstream pharmaceuticals, that will make Rex feel a bit drowsy, and Rex wants to do the best by you, and he's going to say, listen, mate, I'm feeling a bit crook. I'm going to leave my command. I'm going to leave my post. I'm going to what Jason Christoph refers to as hit the shower. So he'll leave. That's one way you can make him leave. Another way he can leave the door and leave the velvet rope is if he has to look up at something. If he's looking up at something, or a person or a subject, an object, he automatically perceives that as being bigger and more powerful and stronger than him. So he thinks, I'm outgunned here. I can't fight. You need a tougher guy than me. I'm standing down. I'm relieving my command. He's also very susceptible to interruptions to his vision. Flashing lights, kinds of imagery, mind tricks. I say mind tricks, sorry, illusions. If you pull an illusion on Rex, he's going to start thinking, I'm not myself today. I better relieve my post. And that's how hypnotists gain entry to your subconscious, because what they will do is they will disrupt the visual, they'll disrupt the line of sight of Rex. Look into my eyes, look at this pendulum swinging, and look above, or whatever it might be. And there's usually a click of the fingers or a flash of light. And at just that moment, Rex goes, whoa, what was that? I've got to leave my post. Now, when Rex leaves his post, when your conscious brain shuts off, that leaves the doors of the five senses wide open. Anyone can enter the club. And then what happens is you get the undesirable patrons will rock up. So you get the guys. So before you know it, everything floods in. And it could be the media you consume. It could be the decisions that you make. The decisions that you make will be driven by Joe, because what happens is once Rex leaves his post, the only person you got left to come out the front is Joe. And if you meet Joe, lovely guy, but he's an absolute pussy. And he's just going to walk out and say to everyone, yeah, come on in. Biker gang rocks up. All right, boys, try not to smash the place up too much. In they come, everything, I'll open the TAB machine for you. Oh, look, this bloke's breaking the pokies open. Oh, well, let me go and get you some snacks and I'll put some music on. He just wants to placate everyone. He just wants to pain and go away and have a good time, right? And he
Mm,
just wants to be liked because he's in charge of herd affairs. And the reason why he wants to be liked is because when you're ill, when you're in a tribal situation, that your tribe is your insurance policy. You
mm,
perform your role for the tribe, but when you get sick and you can't hunt and you can't feed yourself, you're reliant on your other tribal members to look after you. So it's hardwired into us that we got to get on with people. And social media is a massive experiment in this. Okay. So if we can see we get lots of likes, we get lots of followers, great, I'm part of the tribe. That means I'm safe because it's safety in numbers. And
mm,
I don't want to do anything that's going to get me kicked out of that tribe.
mm.
So that's what Joe's concerned with. And that's why Joe behaves the way he does. So now everyone's inside the nightclub of your mind, you know, and the place has been absolutely demolished. And the good patrons are leaving. The good patrons represent your positive thought forms and your good habits. They be like, I'm out of here. This place is violent. It's got a low vibration. You know, there's people puking up on the floor. It's just
Mm,
carnage. Yeah. And then what happens is, of course, the people that are in the club, they start ringing their mates and asking them, this is our place. This is the kind of place that you'd like. Get yourself down here. So it like attracts like. So you start getting more crap flooding in through the front doors, and Rex is getting overwhelmed.
yeah.
And then, you know, if Rex comes out of the shower, Joe's going to give him a drink anyway. So once that floodgate opens, it's a lot easier to turn people away. And I used to do this. Remember, as I said at the beginning, it's a
Mhm.
lot easier to turn people away from the door of the club than it is to go in and drag them out.
Yeah.
So the whole point is not to let them in the first place. Now, that's not to say for anyone listening, you're fucked because they're already in. We're going to come to that because there's a way that we can deal with that. But the first thing you need to be aware of is, okay, let's go to the source of all of the negative inputs and let's stop that source. Let's be aware of that. So let's make sure that we give Rex the body armor and the fortitude that Rex needs. So let's not poison ourselves.
Mm,
Let's watch our diet. Let's make sure we're getting sleep. Let's make sure that we're only engaging in positive media. Okay. Or let's at least be conscious that what we're watching, there could well be hidden messages, etc., within that content.
mm,
So that's the first step in self-sabotage, is guarding the city, is basically making sure that the gates of Troy are sealed again.
mm,
The next thing is you've got to fire your internal government, your internal cabinet, because you've got to reclaim your kingdom, because that cabinet hasn't been elected by you, just like our government, really. It's been put in to be a puppet master of this programming.
mm.
So you can't get rid of Joe, but how Joe works, Joe's the system. You need to give Joe the things that he can. So you basically say to Joe, this is your playlist from now on.
Mm.
So from now on, you know, these records that you are playing where, you know, uh, everything I touch turns to shit. I just want to get high. I can't be fucking dealing with it anymore. All of this kind of stuff. We need to get rid of that playlist. And we need to bring in a better playlist.
Mm.
Because as I said at the beginning, anything that comes into that subconscious can be synthesized to a greater output. Subconscious is like an amplifier.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the first bit of the self-sabotage process. The next bit is then bringing in the positive programming, the
Mm.
affirmations, doing the meditation to quieten down the chatter of the mind. And I'm not a master of meditation, but all meditation is to me is it's not about, you know, what you want to do is concentrate and you want to focus and you want to really, really concentrate on what you want and just think about that and no. Med- Meditation is just purely about there's just how many times with a laptop do you not shut it down? You just close the lid on it,
Mm.
right? How many times do you actually turn your phone off? You don't. You put it on silent. You know, you hit the button on the side, but you actually turn it off. What meditation is doing is turning you off.
Mm.
Then when you turn back on, that's when the updates come in, when you reboot. So all meditation is about is, okay, let's just totally turn this thing off. So
Yeah.
don't want you think about anything. And that's hard to do.
Mm.
But with practice, you get better. Do you know what? Even if you get a moment of it, because in a 5D, time is nothing. So you
Mm.
might think, I only did that for about 30 seconds. What good's that going to do? Does a lot of good.
Mm.
So that's where the meditation comes in, because what you're doing is you're letting your system reboot, you're letting the new software programs kick in, and you're stopping that mind chatter. Because the mind chatter the whole time is it judges, it's the ego, it's just the parrot on your shoulder. It just won't shut up, whether it's
Yeah.
good, whether it's bad.
Mm.
And you need a break from that. And if you do that alongside a good night's sleep, you're onto a winner. That is going to enable you the headspace to make better, more strategic, long-term thinking decisions and deal with the drudgery of personal change.
Mm.
Rather than Joe, who's very pain averse, childlike, and seeks immediate gratification, going, oh, sod this. Come on, let's just get a pizza and watch some porn. So that helps you out big time.
Mm.
And and then from that, you've then got to go, okay, so right, Rex really needs something to sink his teeth in. He doesn't just want to work the door. He's a
Mm.
smart guy. That's now where you need your life purpose.
Yeah.
What's your dharma? What's your spiritual contract? What are we going to go do? And then once you find that, pay attention, 007. I've developed this watch for you. Then you get the gadgets and the gizmos coming and the synchronicities, and you get all the stuff coming from the universe.
You get your £15.
You get your £15 and you can go off. I mean, sometimes it comes back to front, here's your £15 and stop self-sabotaging. but
Yes.
but that's the process. And everything's different. And the thing is as well, once you start appreciating, this sort of quantum illusion, that it might be something I have clients and they on the surface 3D my programming says they've really got their act together. I think, what are you
Mm.
talking about? You've got money in the bank, you work out, you're happily married, you've got good social life, good sex life, you've got good morning rituals. Why are you coming to me? And it could just be something as innocuous as, and I'm scrolling through this. And it could just be there's a limiting belief that was sparked off by one little thing in their childhood
Mm.
that's just stopping that engine from running smoothly. It could just be there's just one little thing with regards to the chocolate bars that they like to eat
Mm.
or the coffee that they drink. It could just be one of those things. Okay. So it's not, for anybody listening, I'm not dealing with people that are walking in and they're like, got any spare change, bro? I could really do with a hit. It's not obvious like that, it's far more complex than that. And I think what we do is we tend to attach, you know, quantities to things to
Hmm.
sort of see, well, it's got to be that. And there's always a magnitude and a spectrum of, well, this drug or this habit is worse than this. No, it's down to the individual. It's just whatever is not, you know, whatever's preventing them from running optimally that we need
Mm.
to go in and weed out like a garden. And ultimately, they are the ones that do the work because it has to be. It has to come from within. I never hard sell or chase people. They've got to want to do the work and change. And then also when they do, I'm there to help them basically. And so, okay, what about that one there? You forgot that patch. If you're weeding a flower bed, I'd be saying you didn't look behind that rose bush. Yes, you see those weeds? They're taking all the nutrients away from your nice flowers out here in the front. Pull those out.
Yeah. Mm. Such a poignant conversation to have, I think, in the times that we are living in, and so, so, so good. I love that you classify things so simply with Rex and with Joe and the nightclub. It's so clear and it's so vivid, and no one wants a sticky nightclub floor. No one wants to be on that. Oh, so, so, so great. And then, oh my gosh. So you get people from all walks of life. And I love that you said about that you're not getting people that are like, totally like just destitute. You get people that have done the right things, right, that they were supposed to do from all of the training and the programming and all of the societal expectations and all of the familial expectations and everything.
Mm.
They've done all the right things. And yet they're at a place where something is just missing. There's something missing. Something's not quite right. It doesn't feel like enough. Isn't there
Yeah.
supposed to be more here? Is this it? I've done all the things that everyone said that I was supposed to do. Is this it? you know? And so, is there, other than like what you've just shared, is there any, like, are you noticing a trend with the people that come to you? Is it because, for example, I do a lot of readings and I'm getting just an absolute influx of people that are at this point of they've been living a 3D life for such a long time, and they're just at this point where that's not it. It's not it. And they're looking for and seeking out what they're really meant to be here for. Um,
Mm.
that is it. And people come to me from you know, all spectrums of the awake journey and awakening journey, different
Yeah.
levels, but the trend for me is like, this is not enough. There is something bigger, something at a soul, energetic, at a level that I can't see with my eyes, but I can feel with everything else. Is that similar for you?
Yeah, it is. And I think what happens is, look, I'm back in the classroom. I think you come full circle. Quite often on these journeys, you go back full circle, and you think to yourself, well, the journey's different. It's a bit like when you pick up a book and you've read it before
Yeah.
and it's changed. The book hasn't changed, but you've changed.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is people are seeking authority, self-authority, because like you said, they've done everything that was expected of them.
Mm.
And what 2020's done is they've gone, shit, this is incredible. Fucking hell. Like they completely, is this what's going on? And when there's a leak somewhere, there's a leak everywhere. So then they start questioning everything. And
Mm.
then ultimately they question, my God, what were my motivations and what have I done? And I have to say to a lot of clients, why are you beating yourself up?
Mm.
You've been a great parent. You've created businesses that have employed people and provided them with a living. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But there is this mass awakening where people, and I think what it is it comes back to authority, being the author of your own story, authority.
Mm.
And I think that's probably the big thing that's missing. And the other trend I'm seeing as well as part of this is people are struggling because now that they're aware of this, they want permission from their nearest and dearest to do it.
Mm.
But that's completely against the grain of personal authority is you give yourself the authority, you give yourself the permission and you just do it. But it's a recurring theme that I get with clients that my husband doesn't see it that way. My wife doesn't see it that way.
Mm.
And they feel that, oh, I'm going to lose my loved ones in the process if I go down there. And it's just not worth it. Who am I to rock the boat? It's not just about me. It's about my children. It's about the family. So again, there's this, the expectation of pleasing others comes in. I mean, don't get me wrong. Part of being free from self-sabotage is to be dependable, reliable, and have a functioning role within your tribe. But ultimately, I think people need to give themselves the authority. They can't possibly self-actualize.
Mm.
And if you're self-actualized and you mow grass for a living, I envy you. If you're self-actualized and you chop wood for a living, if you're self-actualized and you're a foreign exchange trader, it doesn't matter. And I think people seem to think that they've got to change. Oh, everything I've done has been horseshit, and I don't want to do it. No, remember, it's part of the journey. You wouldn't be here at this point unless you'd done all of that.
Mm.
So the next question is, what are you going to do now? And that doesn't mean, that's it, I'm going to resign tomorrow. Well, I'm not saying that you do that. But where are you going to put your energy?
Mm.
How can you find within your niche and where you've been placed, is there anything you can do there to fulfill your mission,
Mm.
right? To spread love, joy, and abundance. Is there anything you can do to be love in action? And if there isn't, well, then it's time to move on.
Mm.
Told you it's drudgery. Told you it's hard. Told you you're going to look like John McClane at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah, the best part is that you won't be the only character at the end. You won't be the only John McClane. There will be others there with you, just as beaten, just as bruised, but their spirit will be so fiercely strong. And I think that that is when you really that you don't arrive anywhere, but you start to see your true tribe rise from the ashes. Like, oh, thank goodness. And this is,
That's been the great thing about all of this, hasn't it?
yeah,
So it's kind of like we've all been walking about like sleeper agents, and all of a sudden we've all got the call. And this is the big thing, that it separated the wheat from the chaff. And there's a big difference between a virtue signaler, a person that talks the talk, and a person that walks the walk.
mm,
And you can pick that up. You see it's really evident within your own circle, your social circle, within your family circle, your business circle. What people are prepared to share on LinkedIn, what they're not prepared to share. What they're prepared to talk about on social media, but not. What they will challenge, what they won't challenge. You know, how compliant they are. It's very, very revealing.
very real.
And when you do, and you are, like you going back to what you said, when you find there's many, many Ripleys and John McClanes and we're all there at the end, that is the absolute cream that's risen to the top, quite frankly, in terms of truth. And you can't govern that.
Mm-mm.
You can't control that. You can't harvest that for
Mm,
its energy. It's not going to do that.
mm-mm.
It's so, by shaking things up, um, I don't like using the word elites, but what technocrats, whatever you want to say, what these people have done is that they've shaken up the milk, and all that's done is just made the cream rise to the top.
Yeah, it's so good. And I love this because when you have walked, you have walked and dragged and pulled yourself over burning hot coals and just like, you, you know, you fought your tooth. Oh my gosh, my words. You fought tooth and nail through that smoke and that fire and that debris. You've gotten yourself through to the outside of the prison. When you've worked so hard for so long to get to that point, most of our lives up until that point, we've lived it on someone else's terms. And
Mm,
if you can't yet comprehend that you have been programmed since day dot by all the media, by all of the schooling system, by the medical system, by the government, by just everything that seems to be there for you. Those are the things that you've actually been programmed by. If that is too big of a bite to take right now, then just think about the fact that your life has been on someone else's terms. You grew up because that's what you thought your parents wanted you to be, or what all the way that you've gone through life. Maybe you wanted to take a gap year at the end of high school, but because everyone else was going off to uni and doing some kind of, you thought, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. So your life up until this point has really been on someone else's terms. And then when you do the hard work, firstly, to make the decision to make a big change, and then you walk the walk and you make those changes, you pick yourself back up, you unwind yourself from the life you've created, and you discover your true spirit. Because you've fought for that really hard, yourself, your own self-authority has done that, you become someone unmessable with. You are not going to do things that are going to now contaminate that. No, no, no. Your level of self-respect, your level of standards in your life for the people that you be around, the food that you eat, the environments you're in, who you mix with, who your family mixes, like this becomes so much higher. You can't help but vibrate at a really ridiculously high level. But you have to walk through almost the fires of hell to get there, which is what
Mm.
makes it worth keeping and maintaining and holding on to. And this is the whole purpose of what you do, right? To raise an army of people that cannot be messed with for
Pretty
themselves,
much, yeah. And
their
yeah, and
families.
because what happens is if you lead by example, you and when I say lead, it's not like once you're on that frequency, you don't even have to say it. People pick it up. Subconsciously, they'll pick it up because they might even attack you because subconsciously they'll be like, what's going on? You
Mm,
know, why are you different somehow? They can't articulate what it is, but
mm,
the Joe inside them is going to think something's not right here. And you, in a way, it's kind of like you've got, for want of a better word, it's like if you had a cancer, but you're managing it. So I'm very skeptical. People say, yeah, I've completely got rid of my self sabotage. Well, I haven't. So please tell me, how did you do that? I manage it a lot better.
Oh my goodness.
It's still there.
Yeah.
You're still going to end up back in the proverbial tool shed where all your vices are there. And that's part of the process
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
You know, people say, I relapsed. Don't use that word around me, relapsed. You,
Yeah.
you, you know, uh, we call it the tool shed where before you know it, you're back in his shed and it's cocaine, porn, alcohol, gambling, everything's all in there, right? And I had a client, she said to me the other day, she said, oh, I'm back in a tool shed. And I said, great. I said, but remember, she said, well, I'm stuck here. I said, no, you're not stuck, you're visiting.
Yeah.
So it used to be your home. You've left home. And
Yeah.
every now and then you might go back and visit. But after a while, you're going to spend less and less time there because you're going to go, yeah, this just isn't for me anymore. It's not the same like it used to be.
Mm.
Like I'm, trying to get back into the drink and trying to get back into the drugs. And now, don't get me wrong, I was like, oh, it's like the good old days. But then I just thought, nah, it's not me. And before you know it, you'll be calling a cab and you'll be out of there.
Mm.
And eventually, after a while, you just won't bother coming back.
Totally.
But you are going to take trips back there, and it is going to keep happening
Yeah.
because we're human. And that's what people have got to. I'm very sort of. There's this thing we've got to be careful of now, right? Because again, there's people that walk the walk, and I think walking the walk, you got your flaws, you got your warts and all. I mean, as I said, John McClane didn't wear a tuxedo at the end of Die Hard and drink a vodka martini. He was fucked.
Yes.
He just was like, take that man to the hospital. He cannot move for a month, you know, and that's where people. So when I see all of this big sort of movement now, right, where
Yeah.
your Jimmy Jones types, your narcissistic sort of new age spiritual leaders are coming into this void and they're going, follow me, and you know, it's all about this and it's all about that. You know, it's a sect cult leaders playground at the moment because you've
Mm.
got a lot of people in a state of enemy that have woken up, and again, they're looking for some as until they find their self authority, they're looking for an authority leader,
Mm.
and they're probably going to go with someone who talks like them,
Mm.
dresses like them, but has a little something different about them. So they're going to go that way. And before you
Yeah.
know it, they're all drinking Gatorade. So, and that is a problem, because what that's doing is it's obfuscating the it's obfuscating the light, and it's blocking the field of vision for what people, it's blocking the path for where people really need to go. It's not helping them.
Well,
It's
yeah.
supporting the narcissists at the top of their triangle. So they're even at the last stages, even when you're on the top floor, as I'm saying, don't think there aren't any booby traps,
Yeah,
because there are. And that's where, we got to look out for each other. And
totally.
really all it comes down to is yeah, we just have to make sure we're doing our absolute best, each and every one of us.
And it always comes back to that self-authority, doesn't it? There is such a like looking out and wanting someone to show you the way is part of the programming because we've been trained to look up as we're sitting down at our desks in school to look up. Poor
Mm.
Rex has been looking up for many days in a row for many years to the authority figure at the front of the room.
And what does Rex do when he has to look up? He feels outgunned and he leaves his post.
He's off to the toilet. He's off to the
Yeah.
shower.
And that's
Yeah.
why in a church you're looking up at the pulpit,
Yeah. Yeah.
usually with some leaded glass behind, so that light comes in as well.
Yeah.
Just so you can't quite see because the sun's in your eyes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then Rex goes off again. In it goes.
And anything that then is spoken about, anything that then, any of the topics, anything that comes in, Joe's just eating it up, putting the next record on, receiving the record from the priest or the teacher at the front, putting it on. This is what we're playing now, folks. And that training to look up and look out external from ourselves is it runs so deep that when people are in the bottom they're at the bottom of their barrel and they're running off
Mm,
fumes, the desire is always to look out, look external, find something external to help them. And that's always when I say that's when you've got to look in the mirror.
mm,
If you're going to look
mm,
outside of yourself, put a mirror there so that you're looking back at yourself and remind yourself it's you. You're the one. You're the one that needs to get yourself through this. You're the one that needs to you need to discover your own spirit through all of that programming. So
yeah. And
powerful.
within that, don't be hard on yourself,
Yes.
because you didn't ask for the programming. I mean, did you decide what was put into you up until the age of 7 when your subconscious was most malleable? No, you didn't. But yeah, you have to be responsible. You need to take action,
Yeah.
but no more self-flagellation. It's just like, okay, so this program's in. I've done it their way, and I didn't end up happy. So now I'm going to, as Bruce Lee would say, I've emptied my cup, so now I can drink your tea. So that sounds like I'm replacing one dogma with another. But what I'm saying is you're creating a void and a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. And this is about you then filling it with your own self-authority.
Mm.
And a lot of people find it hard because, as Dr. Thurman Fleet said, 2% of us think, 3% of us think we think, and 95% of us would rather die than think.
I shouldn't.
And there's a 3% of us that think we think.
Mm.
Um, I'd say I'm qualified for that. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm in the 2% who thinks, you
Mm.
know. And I'm talking on 3D terms here, guys, because there's a difference between, ultimately you're not your thoughts. What you think, 90% of what you think is bullshit. We
Mm.
don't know anything. The whole point of meditation is to stop thinking. Because there's a difference between being thinking and being consciously aware. You know, you can you can you can turn off thoughts, but try and turn off consciousness.
Mm. Mm.
No, it just is. You can't turn it off.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, sorry, I just segued that in there because I'm sort of talking in one term. But just going back to, what people are thinking when they first start this journey
Yeah.
is is just that. And they think, well, it's just me, everything I touch turns to shit. And that's when Joe really puts the boot in. And that's when the ego really puts the boot in. The ego's your parrot on your shoulder that won't shut up. The ego's the one that's saying, the Melbourne Cup, go on, put $100 on that one. And then you do. And it says, what'd you do that for? And well, you told me to. No, I didn't.
Mm.
It's just incessant, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And it will drive you crazy. And a lot of people want to drown that out and they don't realize. And that's why they'll have a drink. That's why they'll smoke a spliff. That's why they'll mong out with the pizza and watch Foxtel or whatever, because they just think,
Whatever
well,
it is. Yeah,
I need to switch off this voice in my head.
totally.
Whereas actually what I just got to do is you've got to realize, well, actually the voice it's what that voice is that voice repeats everything it sees and judges on everything, because it thinks by talking about it, it can prepare for what's coming next and it can feel safer.
Mm.
And that's where you find yourself thinking, shit, what am I doing on Monday? Oh my God, how am I going to make that next payment? What if I don't call back so and so and they don't realize that I did? That this voice is doing this because it seems to think that by doing it, it's going to change the outcome and it's going to have a better control of this thing called life. Nah, it doesn't.
Mm-mm.
That gets us in a real state because it uses up a lot of mental energy and
Mm.
again makes us really susceptible to being programmed.
Yeah. Oh, Michael, this has been such an epic conversation. I I would really love to give you an opportunity to share with everybody the process of how you work with people. So you work one to one? Do you work at a group level? How does this, if someone was to come to you, what would you be giving?
Well, yeah, so I work on a group level where I'll come in and explain to people basically Rex and Joe and sort of give an overview of self-sabotage. Really, the real work has to be done for me to consult people on a one-to-one. And it starts with a very lengthy questionnaire. It probably takes on average, you know, 5 to 8 hours solidly to complete. And I wouldn't recommend trying to do it in one hit. Many people try to. And I often find that clients will say, right, I've got the questionnaire, Mike. I'm halfway there. So I should have it over to you tomorrow. And I'll just say, okay. Well, no, that's not going to happen. 3 weeks later, I finished it
Yeah.
because it's hard.
Yeah.
Because that in itself is where you need to look in the mirror and you've got to really, you're paying good money and you're investing your time and you've made a decision here.
Mm,
So that's sort of the reason why it's done that way, is because it forces you've got to do this once and for all. And you've got to be really, really honest and truthful and transparent with yourself. Otherwise, you're wasting your time.
totally.
So then when people open the lid and have a look inside the box, and then fucking hell, there's loads of stuff. And it all starts to come out. And there's a lot of stuff. In fact, there's so much that comes out. I think that for a lot of clients, they have this process where they can't just put it all down on paper. They got to pick the top 5. And then
Yeah.
that gives us enough to work on. But this covers everything. It covers everything from, whether or not, you who in your family has body piercings or tattoos. I'm not going to explain the relevance of that now, but that's the kind of detail it goes down to.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know, what time zone were you born? Where, give me the last 5 things you watched on television. It goes from a whole range of things so
Yeah.
that I can get a full picture and I can look and I can see here, okay, there are 5 types of self-saboteur that I'm looking for.
Mm,
Broadly speaking, by default, we're all at least one.
mm,
Personally, I'm a variant. Had to be, didn't I? So I probably a mixture of about 3. I'd say, for one of a better word, my most interesting clients are. Um, but then there's a client that is the challenging clients are the ones I said, and this is where, you really got your work cut out, are the people that on the surface, they really seem to have it together, but they're searching for that personal authority, that self-authority. So there's a smidgen of maybe one of those pain self-saboteur types. And
Mm,
the five that I'm looking for. So we have a pain aversion self-saboteur. We have the fire starter self-saboteur. We have the financial self-saboteur.
mm,
We have the victim self-saboteur.
mm,
And we have the failure to thrive self-saboteur.
mm, mm.
Then that sounds really broad, failure to thrive. And I tried to modify the title of that. And I was even skeptical at first that there was such type of person. Then when you meet one, you go, oh my God, there's a failure to thrive self-saboteur. And that's quite an awful one because it's kind of like they will look to self-sabotage at every single opportunity
Yeah.
with everything, even within a process itself. But then, having said that, you have the fire starter self-saboteur. The fire starter just likes to start shit, and they love to chat. They can listen to themselves chat all day. So sometimes they'll book an appointment with you. They'll book an introductory call, and they just want to chat. And I can see straight away we got a fire starter self-saboteur, and 9 times out of 10, they won't follow through.
Mm,
So it's kind of like the paradox is they're the ones that really need a lot of help, but you have to have boundaries for yourself because if you give too much of you, they'll just want your energy.
yeah.
So you have to just say, call me when you want to walk the walk. Don't bullshit me. Goodbye. And you got to just leave it there because otherwise what's going to happen is they're just going to take from you. Once they've sucked the juice out of you, they'll go on to the next host because that's what they do. But yet they're never fulfilled. They're never satiated.
Mm,
And so that's an interesting one. The most common one is the pain aversion self-saboteur. And that comes in various guises. All right. So I'm not saying about, oh my God, I feel really bad, so I'm going to eat a bag of donuts. We're not talking about really obvious examples here. We could be talking about the workaholic. There's someone
yeah.
that on the surface you think, my God, you're incredible. You've done all of this for businesses and for charity and for blah, 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 blah. Hmm. Why can't you sit still for a moment? Oh, because when I do, it's really uncomfortable. Why is it uncomfortable? Shit, I'm a people pleasing Terminator sent through space and time to just run around after everyone. Yeah, you kind of are, and now we're starting to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. So the process is once I go through the questionnaire with you, and it takes me hours of pouring through it and building a case. So it's kind of like almost you feel like a solicitor. You've got this massive affidavit, and you've got to go through it, and you've got to put a case together. And it's kind of like you're looking for points of law within the realms of self-sabotage archetypes.
Mm,
And I used to do just 2 sessions, but I just find it's not long enough.
mm,
So it's typically 3 sessions. So the first session will go through an outline of how the brain works with regards to Rex and Joe. And we look at the typical sources of programming. And we look at some low hanging fruit, some immediate actions we can take to remedy the situation to stop the influx of negative programming.
mm,
Next session after that is we actually identify and home in on which self saboteur type you are. And we go through the questionnaire and we look at the evidence to support that. So there's no absolutes in this process. This is purely exploratory.
mm,
And when we come to that, the third session is then about, okay, Rex is a smart guy. So what are we going to do with him? And then it's about coming together and outlining a plan on what the next step is with regards to fulfilling your self-authority and finding your path. And within there, there's also the talk about the fact that you will end up back in a tool shed.
Mm.
It's not abracadabra, no more self-sabotage. No, it's always going to be with you. It's like how you manage it.
Mm.
It's like, if you've got a stutter, you don't get rid of the stutter. You learn how to manage the stutter so
Yeah.
that you can engage in public speaking and do what it is you want to do.
Mm. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And 3 sessions. I'm assuming you have people work with you longer term than that, though, right? Because 3 sessions, a lot. Wow.
Yeah, I do. Um, but the context of that is different.
Yeah.
So when we're working together, it's more of uh, it's more co-creative. It's more of a check-in. It's kind
Maintenance.
of like yeah, like if we likened it to a garden, right? The first 3 sessions, we've completely re-landscaped. We've brought dump trucks in and removed rubble, and we've done all this stuff.
Yeah.
After that, I'm just coming in, doing some pruning, mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
It's more of a maintenance. And this is the thing where, because this was the thing, if you're a victim self-saboteur, then you love to talk about what happened to you back in the past.
Yeah.
And you don't, but there's part of you that does because it's your identity
Yeah.
being that victim. So I'm not a fan of the modality where we sit in the garden shed with a bottle of water and a box of tissues, and you give me $100 a week and just sit there and cry and talk about what stressful week you've had, and you're on
Yeah.
my books for about 9 months, because I don't really see that improving anything, because all I'm actually doing is reinforcing the negative programming that's already inherent within you. We
Yeah.
want to get it out and put the
Yeah.
new stuff in.
Yeah.
And ultimately you have to do the work. And that's why, 3 sessions, it's no nonsense. It's like, well, we're changing. It's
Yeah.
like we're bulldozing. We're getting this stuff out. We're bringing in new stuff in.
So
And
good.
then after that, people obviously say, well, look, that's me done. I'm fine. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Um, and also, elephant in the room, there's a financial element to this. So they might just say, look, that I want to make sure people get the biggest bang for their buck. I'm
Yeah.
not here to borrow their watch and tell them the time.
Yeah.
So it's about delivering value. Again, that's my purpose is to deliver high value healing to help people. And if I
Mm.
don't do that, then there's no more gadgets or gizmos that come my way. But there are situations where people will say, well, actually, for me, I want to come back to you because I need a bit more,
Yeah.
especially when people get to the next level. Because then when people get to the next level, they say, right, okay, I'm changing within to change without. Now, Mike, can you explain to me what 5D is? And can you explain to me about, and there's all of these other stuff that comes out that, because remember, as you said, you can't just go and hit someone with everything in one go. You've got to meet them at the level where they're at.
Totally.
So, and that's why every case is different. So then thereafter, yeah, of course, we'll continue engagement. I'm my client's coach for life.
Yeah.
And, it's not too uncommon for me to get a WhatsApp out of the blue. Someone saying, Mark, I'm really struggling today. I'm back in a tool shed. That's the
Mhm.
most common thing I get.
Yeah.
I get, 60 days later, oh, I feel so ashamed. I've let myself down. Joe's running the show. I'm back in a tool shed. And I kind of have to say, well, congratulations, because it's bound to happen, but you're visiting a tool shed. You're not stuck there.
Yes.
So, we've all gone back to the town where we were brought up. We've all driven past the college where we went.
Yeah.
You know, we've all done this sort of thing. We've all been at a funeral, and the high school mates that you haven't anything to do with, you've ended up having a beer with them and catching up. You know, I'm kind of romanticizing it because it's not
Mm.
actually. There's nothing romantic about being back. Taking hard drugs and engaging in toxic relationships or whatever your poison might be.
Yeah.
But it is part of the process. I think the worst thing you can then do is beat yourself up and deal in absolute terms like it's all or nothing, because
Yeah.
it's not all or nothing.
Mm-mm.
it's that's why I don't like this word relapse. Because relapse to me is like, oh, I was on square 100 and someone's taken me down the snake on the snake and ladder board, and now I'm down at square number 13.
No.
Well, I don't see it that way. I
Yeah.
don't see it that way.
Yeah. Oh, Michael, this has been, I'll say it again, such an epic conversation. Thank you so much for bringing not only your wisdom, your knowledge, but also your whole journey and experience, because that is what people pay for. They want to work with someone who has walked the walk, and you are still walking the walk, and not afraid to admit it. And that, I think, is just the most powerful thing in the entire world. Where can people find you to work with you?
Sure. So you can visit my website
Yeah.
and book a screen chat. And the website address is sabotageselfsabotage.com.
Awesome. And we will put all the links in the show notes for everybody to make it super, super easy for you. Michael, thank you so much. I'm going to push the record button.
Thank you, Georgina. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me on.